reacting to our 2024 F1 champion.
Table prediction.
So how we're going to do this is we're going to give out 2 points if we're bang on, 1 point for whoever's closest between us, and 1 point each as well if it's a draw. And then essentially see who's done best, tally it up, and crown the less washed person out of the two of us. Let's get into it and start with 24th place, Jack Doohan. I unsurprisingly predicted not applicable because I didn't predict him, because had I actually secured in my 20th to 1st championship prediction table in 24th place Jack Doohan, I would have been seen as the oracle of Formula One. Didn't expect him to be in Formula One to have any races this year, but he did. So it's a great start.
Yeah, of course, it's non-applicable. So we didn't do driver changes, but we'll kind of base it based on the others. But I am disappointed with Jack Doohan because he didn't get a point, which meant this next driver did not finish last in the championship. Our good old friend.
Of course. Let's go to that next person. In 23rd position, it was Logan Sargent.
And as a Logan Sargent stan, I predicted him P17, of course, the dizzying heights of P17. So once again, I have overestimated him. The year before I called him a P20 merchant and he finished P21. This year, I'm actually way off by 6 because he's managed to not score a point through the year. And I predicted him 17th because I thought, Williams were going to have a good car, which they did, to be fair. And I expected Logan to have a better year, which, let's be honest, he did not.
I predicted 19th place because I didn't believe Logan Sargent was going to put many, if any, points on the table. And yeah, I mean, the fact that I was still 4 positions off is wild. 4 positions lower than what I initially thought was going to be 20th place as the bottom position. So I will gladly take those 2 points. Thank you, Tommy.
1 point. Keep it in. It's funny. We definitely haven't just done an outtake where you also said 2 points.
Let's go to P22 then, and it was Valtteri Bottas. I predicted he was going to finish in 16th position. I felt like there might have been a Bottas masterclass, and perhaps that was supposed to be Abu Dhabi, but it wasn't. And Sauber had an even worse car than I thought they were going to have this year. So miles off, 6 positions. Bottas, how have you finished 22nd? Crazy.
I also predicted 16th, and it's crazy to think that, Bottas finished last of the full-time runners this season. Shocking year for Sauber, and didn't expect them to be this bad where Bottas didn't even get a point all year.
So we share that point, Tommy, as we move on
sure do.
To 21st, which was Liam Lawson.
Liam Lawson, of course, we did not know he was going to join the grid, although maybe some of us may have expected it. But of course, it's an NA because we did not grade him because he wasn't in F1 yet.
Yes, I also did not predict that Liam Lawson would do driving in Formula One because, again, this season has been ridiculous. So we will negate him, take him out the books as we head to P20. Zhou Guanyu. I predicted Zhou to finish in 17th place. And he was on a charge after Qatar, and I thought, well, this could be on. And I can't believe he's had all of that points haul and still finished in 20th position.
Zhou Guanyu, I went for 18th. So 1 lower. Didn't expect him to have a good season, but I also didn't expect them to be the worst car on the grid. So that is 1 point for me.
Let's now go to Franco Colapinto, who finished in 19th, but obviously not applicable because, again, had one of us said Franco Colapinto was going to be in Formula One for a few races, wow.
People weren't even expecting it where they went, when Logan got fired, never mind before it. So, none of us could have predicted Franco to be in F1, so it's 0 points in NA. And same for the next person.
And same for the 18th as well. We'll go through these ones very quickly. Ollie Behrman, of course, in 18th. And neither of us, again, thought he was going to be in Formula One. And now, 17th position, Daniel Ricciardo.
I went for P12 for Daniel Ricciardo. It's crazy to think that at the start of the year, RB were hyped up at this team, that it was going to be incredibly controversial. They're just going to come out with another kind of Red Bull and going to be incredibly quick, and there was all this controversy around them. And of course, Daniel Ricciardo as well was predicted by a lot of people that would potentially even replace Sergio Perez in mid-season, but instead, it's all the way down in 17th, and of course got replaced towards the end of the season as well. So a shocking year for Danny Rick.
I believed in Daniel Ricciardo. I went for 10th in the championship, and he ended up losing his seat. I mean, that couldn't be much further away from what I believed was going to happen for Danny Rick. And as you say, Tommy, loads of people felt as though Danny Rick was on the come-up, not losing his Formula One career. In 16th place, Alex Albon. I predicted P12 because I thought Albon was going to have a better year than he did. Williams, of course, occasionally came out the blocks firing, but not a lot. And Albon down in 16th is a disappointing season from a points haul perspective for Alex.
I went for 15th, so just one away.
Well done, Tommy. Well done.
So another point for moi. I thought Albon was actually quite a lot higher in the championship towards the start of the year, and then just had a tough end to the year, Williams, and not scored many points. He's kind of been leapfrogged, doesn't he, by quite a few drivers who have scored big towards the end. Of course, Haas doing well and Alpine, so 16th, not so great in the end.
Indeed, we now go to 15th place, Kevin Magnussen.
I predicted him P20. I think a lot of people were on the Haas are going to be awful and finish dead last and won't score a single point hype train. And boy, were they not.
As did I, because I went for 20th as well. I believed what Io Komatsu himself said about Haas being dreadful at the start of the year. And then they became best of the rest in quite a few races. So the fact that we both get a share a point for 5 places away for K-Mag is wild, but here we are. Let's go to 14th now, Esteban Ocon. Now, I predicted him P15, so I was not far away at all. But yeah, 14th is... You kind of look at that on paper and go, gosh, Ocon had a really terrible season, but it doesn't really tell the story of just how bad Alpine were for most of it.
I went for P14. I just know so much wheel that I just knew Ocon's exact position is going to finish in the championship. That's how much Formula One knowledge I have, and it wasn't just, of course, a stab in the dark. But yeah, Esteban Ocon, the start of the year, I think our logic was very much predicting these a hell of a lot lower than we thought they'd be, or were going to be compared to last year, because Alpine were doomed, really, and there's all this talk that they could genuinely be the slowest car, which they kind of were at the start of the season. But Ocon bagged a lot of points, of course, didn't he, in that race in Brazil, and that's why he's shot all the way up to 14th, because it could have been a lot worse without that.
Absolutely. Let's go to 13th place now, and it was Lance Stroll.
So I put Lance Stroll in P10, because I thought even Lance Stroll could at least finish last of the top 5 teams, but he could not. And not a good year for Lance Stroll. Aston was a lot worse than it was compared to last year, but he still had quite a poor year.
So I went for 14th place. I did not believe in the Lance Stroll delivery this year, and I was almost bang on. So I will gladly take a point away from you, Tommy, by not believing in Lance Stroll. And I believe that will be a crowd pleaser as well, the fact that I went for so low and it actually came true. So there's Lance Stroll, P13. Yuki Tsunoda finished in 12th, and I predicted him 11th. God, I mean, some of these drivers, horrendous wheel knowledge from us. Others were cooking.
I predicted Yuki Tsunoda P11, but I remember getting quite a lot of... I think it was a controversial opinion at the time, because I, of course, put him ahead of Daniel Ricciardo in the championship. I'm pretty surprised how close we are when I think our expectations of RB were a hell of a lot more than where their car actually was during the season.
Absolutely. Speaking of being close to where drivers finished in the championship and where we predicted, Nico Hülkenberg in 11th.
I went for 19th for Nico Hülkenberg. I thought there was going to be an atrocious year, and not Haas would become probably by the end of the year, other than Gasly's Alpine, probably the best of the rest from the top 4 teams in terms of the pace of the car. Hulkenberg continued to, be brilliant. So 11th place. I think if you told me that Hulkenberg at the start of the year would be 11th in the championship, I'd be like, what on earth are you on about?
Well, not me, Tommy, because I believed in Nico Hulkenberg with my prediction. I've really cooked with this one. I went for 18th.
I'm such a Hulkenberg hater.
And I love as well, like me putting him ahead of anybody else was seen as kind of like, all right, Matt, what are you cooking up here then? Because Haas only have like one wheel and a front wing to take to the first race of the season. So yeah, 18th. I will gladly take the point, considering I was horrendously wrong. And well done to Haas. We now go to the top 10. Pierre Gasly finished in 10th position, and I predicted him P13. Now, there wasn't a lot of belief for Alpine, but yeah, Gasly once again charging through the championship standings in the last few races, because how he's finished in the top 10, considering they were last
he
for
must have been
so
about
long.
I'm sure he was about 16th in the championship
have been,
5
for
races
sure.
ago.
And then scored a massive amount of points. So fair play to Gasly. He was definitely one of the drivers of the last 5-6 races.
I was also 3 off. I went for P13 for Pierre Gasly as well. And Gasly has finished basically right in the middle of the pack with essentially a tale of two halves of scoring absolutely nothing for almost the whole season and then just going on this absolute amazing run. So that is a point each.
Let's go to 9th place now. Fernando Alonso.
I predicted Fernando Alonso in P7. I thought the Aston Martin would be a lot better than it was, but towards kind of midpoint and end of the season, absolutely nowhere. So it's kind of quite surprising that Alonso's even managed to get 9th based on, but it's more the points that he scored at the start of the year, of course.
It might be surprising to you, Tommy, but it wasn't surprising to me because I predicted him in 9th place. Thank you very much. I knew exactly where your GOAT was going to end up. You probably slandered me for putting him P9, and Aston Martin were pretty... Well, they were just mid-pack, weren't they? But hopefully this will be the last of that, and Adrian Newey can make his spark turn into a flame. Let's go to 8th place. Sergio Perez. Now I predicted him P2. I thought Red Bull were going to win every single race of 2024, and instead we had one of the greatest seasons we've had for a very long time. So I will happily be wrong about this and have experienced the 2024 season. Miles off, just... It almost feels worse than the Hulkenberg prediction. It's up there. As much as it's not as many positions, Perez was in the championship winning car.
I also predicted him P2. We kind of had the same conclusion of, well, if Red Bull are going to have the fastest car, even if he's terrible, he will still get enough points to finish second. So the fact that we get to the end of the year, it's the biggest gap between teammates ever, no surprise. He's not won a race when all the other top 7 in the championship have. His teammates won the World Championship and he's all the way down in 8th. I just couldn't see it at the start of the year with how dominant Red Bull were for him to be anything other than 2nd or 3rd.
Let's go to 7th place now. Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton, I predicted him P4. I expected Hamilton to have much more of a season like last year where he'd over-deliver in the car. The Mercedes was not there for a lot of the year, still very unpredictable, and I thought we'd see a great performance from Hamilton, but definitely one of his worst seasons for a long time.
Yeah, really hard to predict, but not for me because I got 7th place bang on. And I feel as though this one in particular, I do remember a lot of people going, Matt, what are you smoking? Hamilton finishing 7th in the championship. Are you good? And I just didn't feel like Mercedes were going to be any good. And they weren't. Mercedes just didn't give them a good enough car that was consistent across tracks. And yeah, bang on there with Hamilton. And I feel like I just have a good feeling with the greatest drivers on the track, Alonso, Hamilton. It's where I can really sort of get into my prediction game. I'm waffling so hard. Let's go to 6th place. George Russell. I predicted him in P8. I felt as though he was not going to outscore Hamilton over the course of a season, but he did, and fair play to him. Of course, Russell and Hamilton work literally level on points, I think, going into Abu Dhabi in terms of points scored, and Hamilton does it round the outside, round the final lap, but it wasn't enough for this season, and I was 2 off.
I went for 9th place for George Russell. I really thought George Russell was going to have a poor season again, which he did last year, finished much down the order, and arguably the Mercedes was even worse at some points of the season, but George managed to deliver a few victories and a good season. So yeah, more points for you, another point.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to 5th place, Carlos Sainz.
Carlos Sainz, I predicted P5. My logic at the time, I remember it well, that he wouldn't beat Charles Leclerc in the championship, but would be there or thereabouts, and that's why I went for P5, so bang on.
Well done, Tommy. You know Wheel. But unfortunately, so do I. P5. That's what I predicted. So we share the points there. So well done to both of us. And I wish you hadn't got it right, because that really would have kept the momentum on my side. But let's go to P4 then. Oscar Piastri. I predicted him 6th. And Oscar outperformed a lot of expectations. I think he can be very proud of what he's achieved so far in Formula One. He's a driver that's talked about a lot, a future world champion, especially mentality-wise and racecraft-wise. Piastri's making some headlines. So yeah, well done to Oscar. And I should have believed in you more, because I went for 6th.
I should have believed in Oscar even more, because I predicted him 8th in the championship. I was not on the McLaren hype train at the start of the year. After Miami, that car just... Well, McLaren cooked, didn't they, with that upgrade? And since then, being spoken about as the best car on the grid, and went on, of course, to win the Constructors as well. But yeah, my logic here wasn't really that I thought Oscar was going to have a bad season. I was just not on the McLaren hype train, so predicted him all the way down in P8.
Well, another point for me. Thank you very much indeed, Tommy. As we now go to 3rd place, Charles Leclerc. As
the real Charles Leclerc fan of this podcast, and someone that knows his driving better than anyone, I predicted him bang on 3rd. I'll admit, I've lucked into this one, because it was very much a Charles come 3rd behind the 2 Red Bulls. And instead, of course, he's finished 3rd in the championship, close to Norris in the end. I think an underrated season from Charles Leclerc, but we'll of course get into that in our driver ratings. I went for, sadly, P4. It was close, but not close enough. Well done, Tommy. I hope you're happy with the money. Such a Charles hater. That one I know for a fact you feel good about. So we're going to swiftly move on now to P2. Lando Norris. I predicted him 3rd. So I felt like Lando was going to have a great season, and he put down a season that he can be proud of. Like, his first time fighting for a championship, it didn't work out. There are things for him to improve, but he still finished runner-up, and he outperformed my prediction. So well done, Lando. And I don't get anything for this, because I predicted Lando Norris to be P6. No ill will towards his driving. I just thought that McLaren weren't going to be the dominant force that they were this year. So I just thought they'd be basically slower than Red Bull and Ferrari, but they certainly weren't. And finally, 1st position was Max Verstappen. I predicted Max, of course, not the boldest of predictions or the most difficult of this one, but I think if you'd said at the end of the year that it would be this close, we'd have said, what on earth are you talking about? Because there were times throughout the year where, of course, this looked like not a dead cert like it has done for the last few years. Indeed, I also predicted Max Verstappen 1st place, so we share the points there as well. Right, the scores on the doors are in. We have done our calculations, which took far too long to literally do 1 + 1 + 2 + 1, etc. But we are here, and the results are: in 2nd place, with the silver medal, is Tom Bellingham with 16 points. Which means the winner, with 19, and gets revenge for the Predictions Championship,
is Matt Gallagher, P19. P19? No, P1 with 19 points.
P19.
1916. What do I want to say? Well, I want to thank everyone that supported me. I want to thank everyone that slandered me as well for these predictions, because I still won. So that's all that matters. The trophy is coming home with me. Tommy, what do you have to say?
I have to say that I'm ashamed of myself for not knowing Fernando Alonso's exact finishing position in the championship.
That's going to haunt you, I think.
It will.
Isn't it?
But hey, we're 1-1. We will do our predictions that we made at the start of the season, so I guess that's the decider.
Yes, indeed, because that was
one championship
more like
each
crazy
at the moment.
prediction stuff and things like that, wasn't it? So looking forward to that one. Tommy, what are your final thoughts, please, sir?
Final thoughts are, if you feel like this podcast did not dive in enough into driver seasons, of course, we are saving that for everyone's favourite driver ratings, where we will review every driver's year. So we will analyse deeply Jack Doohan's one Grand Prix rather than just saying NA.
Exactly. Yes, so look forward to that, everybody. And we will see you very soon. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.
Bye.